2 minutes and 14 seconds. That's all it took for a perfectly good Airbus A330 to fall from the sky. But the real horror? The pilots had no idea what was happening until it was too late. They were flying blind, literally and figuratively. And when they finally realized, they made the worst possible choices. 228 people died that night. But here's the kicker, the plane didn't break. The engines didn't fail. The wings didn't fall off. The pilots, trained, experienced, professional, simply didn't know how to fly. And that's the story we're telling today. Because 15 years later, the same problems still haunt aviation. And your next flight might depend on whether we've learned the lesson. The stakes. We live in an age of automation. Your car parks itself. Your phone predicts your next word. And your plane? It can take off, cruise, and land without a single human touch. But here's the dirty secret, automation is amazing, until it isn't. And when it fails hard. In the 1970s, pilots spent most of their time actually flying. Stick and rudder. Feel the wind. By 2009, they were managers. Supervisors. They monitored screens, typed data, and occasionally nudged a joystick. And when the computers got confused, when the sensors iced over and the autopilot gave up, they were expected to step in. But how could they? They'd never practiced. Their training was about systems, not stick and rudder skills. This isn't just history. This is your flight tonight. On any given day, thousands of planes are in the air, crewed by pilots who may never have hand-flown their aircraft through a stall. And if the automation glitches? They might have 228 seconds to figure it out. The build. To understand what happened, we have to go back to the beginning. Not of the flight, but of the plane. The Airbus A330 was a marvel of engineering. First flown in 1992, it was designed to be the safest, most efficient aircraft in the sky. And it was, on paper. The key innovation? Fly-by-wire. Instead of direct cables, the pilot's commands were sent to computers, which then moved the control surfaces. This allowed Airbus to impose limits. The plane would never let you stall, never let you overstress the wings. It was like a safety net. But that safety net had a flaw, it could be turned off. On June 1, 2009, Air France Flight 447 departed Rio de Janeiro for Paris. 228 people on board. The captain, Marc Dubois, had 11,000 flight hours. The first officer, David Robert, had 6,500. The junior first officer, Pierre-Cedric Bonin, had just 2,900. They were a typical crew. The flight was uneventful for the first 3 hours. Then they hit a storm. Nothing unusual. But the storm caused ice crystals to form in the pitot tubes, the sensors that measure airspeed. The ice blocked the tubes, and suddenly the autopilot had no reliable data. So it did what it was programmed to do, it disengaged. Now the plane was in the hands of the pilots. But they were confused. Alarms blared. Airspeed indicators disagreed. And in the chaos, the junior first officer, Bonin, did something catastrophic. He pulled back on the stick. He was trying to climb. But the plane was already at 35,000 feet. Pulling back at that altitude, with the engines at idle, caused the plane to slow down. And when a plane slows down too much, it stalls. The wings stop producing lift. The plane falls. The crisis. The stall alarm screamed. Stall. Stall. But the pilots didn't believe it. Why? Because the plane had been telling them for years that it was impossible to stall. The computers wouldn't allow it. So when the alarm went off, they assumed it was a malfunction. For the next 2 minutes, Bonin kept pulling back. The plane kept stalling. The captain, who had been in the rest cabin, returned and tried to figure out what was happening. But he had no idea. None of them did. They were trained to manage systems, not to recognize a stall by feel. At one point, the captain said, "We've lost control of the aircraft." But he didn't say, "Push the nose down." Because in his mind, the plane was still flyable. It was just confused. At 2:14 a.m., Flight 447 hit the water. All 228 people died instantly. The wreckage sank 13,000 feet to the ocean floor. It took 2 years to find the black boxes. When the data was analyzed, the truth was devastating. The pilots had done everything wrong. But it wasn't just their fault. The system had failed them. The automation had created a generation of pilots who couldn't fly without it. And when the computers gave up, the humans were lost. The payoff. After the crash, the aviation industry promised change. Airlines revised training. Pilots now spend more time in simulators practicing manual flying. But the problem hasn't gone away. In 2018, a Lion Air 737 MAX crashed because a faulty sensor triggered an automated system that pushed the nose down. The pilots didn't know how to override it. 189 people died. The lesson is simple but terrifying: automation is a tool, not a replacement for skill. And as we hand more control to machines, in cars, in planes, in our lives, we have to ask, are we still capable of taking over when the machines fail? CTA. If this story scared you, it should. But it should also make you think. The next time you buckle into your seat, remember that the pilots up front are human. They're trained. But are they trained enough? Next time, we're diving into the 737 MAX disasters. The story of how a $20 billion aircraft was brought down by a single faulty sensor, and how Boeing tried to hide it. You don't want to miss it. Subscribe now. Because the truth is worth knowing. And the next crash might be closer than you think.